What up, guys? Coach Lou here from BJJ Dominance. So today I want to talk to you guys about probably the best exercise that you're mostly not doing that could transfer specifically to the mat, right? So there's a couple rules when I work with specific sports. So if I tell you, I've worked with a lot of baseball players in my career, and I tell you what, reverse lunge, trap bar deads, floor pressing, and a lot of pulling exercises for the upper back. Fixes and, well, obviously clear up mobility issues. Baseball players will come to you with classical problems that the sport innately creates. But so do grapplers, right? Grapplers they'll come with kind of like a forward posture. Here, crooked elbows that don't straighten out all the way. Sometimes getting the nature of the sport bangs you up. Ankles, knees, and hips are kind of not flowing, you just work through it in a sense. A lot of, I say a high percentage of people. So an exercise for me when I work with a specific demographic has to meet certain criteria. One of the things I'd say is high bang per buck, meaning it should have a big carryover. A lot of grapplers in general won't have that much time to spend in the gym setting, right? It should be what we call exercise congruency or specificity. It should slightly, people go crazy with this, but it should kind of mimic maybe some of the movements that you do on the mat. But be very careful with that because I've seen people do some crazy stuff, you know what I mean? Trying to get too specific there. And then it should keep people safe, right? Safety above all else, right? So one of the exercises we're going to go over today is Zercher squats. And Zercher squat, I believe, is named after a man, Arthur Zercher or Axon Zercher, I forget. And he never had a rack. He never had a power rack to get stuff off, but he had weights and a barbell. So what he would do is kind of take the barbell on the ground, tilt it over, and then hook this arm under, and then he would get in a balance point, which you could imagine that's kind of awkward. And I would hope he was doing both sides because you would get really strong on one side. And then he, like such, whether he wrapped his thumb or kept it here, he would squat with weight right here. And he had nowhere else to put it, so he would put it down. So the story says. I don't know how true that is, but I remember I've heard that a couple times. Today's age, we have racks, right? So the Zercher is an excellent front-loading barbell exercise that you'll be able to do that mimics a lot of, think grappling, right? You're pummeling, getting double underhooks, stuffing, you sprawl, you stuff a double leg takedown. So what I'm doing for you guys is framing it in a way, in the context of what it's applicable for, right? And it's super important. So here we have obviously an axle, a fat bar. I found over time that an axle feels better than a barbell. The thinner, dude, it's gonna hurt, to be honest, on the forearms and the crook of your elbows. But if you have a big problem with that, especially at first, just wrap a towel around the bar. That's the best you're gonna do in a sense. Or, I mean, I've never really done it, but you can use one of those thicker foam pads that people use on their back because they think a squat hurts their back or the skin on their back. It's because they don't understand certain things. But if we see here, I typically always just double hook and grab, right? Now I could use this various ways. I could squat normally down. My elbows definitely want to be inside my thighs. You don't want the elbow to stop the thigh. So a regular bilateral squat, right? We could also use a staggered stance, a staggered regular split squat, or you get in your grappler stance, maybe a little bit more specific, offsetting, right? And there's various ways that you can use this, like to a box. Meaning, let's just say like your standard, if you're into powerlifting or into strength training, your standard box squat where we're hinging our butts going back and our shins are vertical, the barbell's back here, and we're kind of loading the posterior. You can do the same thing with a Zercher, which is here. So it's an exercise that one of the biggest things is it keeps people safe. That's my top priority. It meets the demands of congruency of specifically what you have to, like positions that you have to do. But again, be careful with that because that's where I see people go crazy with it. It has to be in the same ballpark. It doesn't have to be super specific, which I've seen various things in the grappling world that people are trying to get too specific with the skills that they're gonna do. And then secondly, or thirdly rather, it has a high bang per buck. There's a lot going on there when you get to the upper extremities of weights for yourself. Stability in the core. You're gonna have to fight this type of motion, rounded. You have to keep up straight, right? And obviously, it's most of grappling happens with somebody in front of you, or rather to the side, or whatever. Hopefully nobody's behind you, because we all know what happens with that kind of stuff right on the mat. So I say give Zerchers a try, man. You know, by all means, this exercise for me gets my approval. It'll meet some good demands for you guys. Mix it up also. Don't only use the Zercher, use a regular back squat, a regular front squat, as long as you don't have any problems with your shoulders. If you do, another bar that I could recommend is a safety squat bar where the handles are in front. That usually alleviates a lot of people shoulder problems. So it's Coach Lou here. Look up and try Zercher squats. Till later.